Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Inspector General of Police assesses security situation in Zamfara State following the killing of at least 18 persons by gunmen. Vows to arrest perpetrators of the crime. Suicide attacks leaves 17 persons dead and about 50 others injured in Kondoga local government area of Borno State. All Progressives Congress in Kogi State receives defectors from other parties as Governor Bello insists on the re-election of President Buhari in 2019. And the helicopter assessing damage from Friday's earthquake in Mexico crashes, killing 13 persons, including 3 children. For more on our top stories and others, please visit our website. It's channelstv.com and on youtube.com/channelsweb. Log on to m.channelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. The Channels TV and Channels 24 app will give you access to news and updates. You'll also have access to the Eyewitness feature, which you can use to share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and follow the instructions. The federal government is closely monitoring many of the projects and contracts awarded to private bodies across the country in order to ensure proper accountability to the people and timely completion of such projects. The Acting Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, the ICRC, Mr. Chidi Izua, explains that his commission is working hard to ensure that all contractual agreements are adhered to and reviewed accordingly. He was speaking while inspecting the compliance level in the concession agreement at the Eastern Ports in Rivers State. Our correspondent Emmanuel Erei reports.
The port reform program of the federal government in 2005 and the subsequent concessioning of its terminals in 2006 was targeted to increase efficiency of the port, reduce costs of services to port users, promote competition in provision of services, and make Nigerian ports a hub for international shipping trade in the West and Central African sub-region. After 13 years and a similar round of interactions in ports across the country, the Acting Director General of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission and his team are engaging terminal operators in Port Harcourt and Onne. It's an inspection of the concession compliance level at the port that requires a visit to the terminals and their facilities. Over the years, private investors have made huge investments in the port terminal's operations, including the Onne Oil and Gas Free Trade Zone that hosts over 120 companies. But now business here is anything but thriving.
We do know that there's a lot the government can do to assist us. And one of the things is putting the enabling environment and policies that is needed to drive the process and make doing business in this country easy. Once that is done, then investors will go to sleep.
Non-availability of river craft like tugboats and the pilot cutters.
For the relevant agencies, it's time to take a second look at the dotted lines.
You need to flash back and say to yourself, what was the objective of the port reform program? Significantly, it's been achieved in terms of infrastructure investment, in terms of cost of services, in terms of bringing additional business into Nigeria. But we need to take it to the next level.
Economic analysts have continued to campaign for the right policies and incentives to achieve efficiency at the ports, as the federal government also looks to bridge the infrastructure deficit in the country through public-private partnerships to make things work at a faster pace. Emmanuel Erei, Channels Television News.
The Department of Petroleum Resources in Kano State, northwest of Nigeria, is set to begin a special operation to raid fuel stations selling at night and those selling the commodity above government-regulated pump price of 145 naira per litre. Although the department is yet to identify marketers allegedly diverting the product, officials say that they are collaborating with the DSS and other relevant security agencies to carry out night raids as part of efforts to end the crisis. Our correspondent Idris Jibrin, who has been monitoring the situation in Kano, now reports.
For some time now, Kano, like many other states of the Federation, has been struggling to end the fuel crisis that has gripped most parts of the country. The Department of Petroleum Resources says the beginning of the crisis supply of PMS has almost tripled, and more will be delivered in the coming days.
Today we have 18 trucks, manifested. So what we are doing now, we are monitoring the discharge. We have to follow it because 18 is not enough for Kano. In Kano is supposed to have to wait Kano, we need 87 trucks. So what we have today is just 18. So we are following up, we are monitoring, we make sure they discharge at the designated stations. And then from there we monitor sales to make sure that they don't sell above farm price, they don't under dispense.
Petrol queues have resurfaced in Kano metropolis, but the DPR says it's ready to take on those holding and selling at night.
We have given directive that all filling stations should close by 6 p.m. and then reopen the next day by 7 a.m. to avoid all this holding and what have you. We are hoping that NNPC will increase their supply. Once we have more supply, I think the fuel will definitely ease off. All the marketers are cooperating with us. They are cooperating with us. Of course, many are not cooperating, but we are on top of everything.
For commuters and residents still suffering from the fuel situation, there is an assurance from the DPR that the crisis will soon become a thing of the past. Idris Jibrin, Channels Television News.
Bayelsa State is positioned to serve the people with dividends of democracy, and that's coming from the Governor, Siriaki Dixon, on the occasion of the commissioning of several government projects in the state by former President Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. Chief Obasanjo, who commended the efforts of the state government, also pointed out the importance of quality education and healthcare.
The arrival of the former president was to the expected warm welcome at the heliport of Bayelsa State, as Chief Olusegun Obasanjo was received by the state governor, Siriaki Dixon, top government officials, and eminent personalities. He immediately seized the commissioning of the heliport, named the AP Dete Spiff Heliport. The entourage leaves for the next port of call for a meeting with the Bayelsa State Council of Traditional Rulers in Yenagoa. After the meeting, Chief Obasanjo speaks on development in Bayelsa State.
For development to take place in Bayelsa, there must be accessibility. Accessibility in terms of transportation, accessibility in terms of communication, and there must also be first-class facilities for education, for healthcare delivery, and in the last 6 hours that I have been here, I have seen something to convince me that Bayelsa is really in a transformational stage.
This was followed by the commissioning of other projects, including the naming of one of the halls at the Drug Distribution Center after the late Professor Dora Akinyele.
With the proximity to Government House and the facilities, particularly electricity, that is always here. What is good enough for the governor and deputy governor and their families must be good enough for the ordinary people of Bayelsa State.
The visit also involved interaction with students of state-owned model schools at the Ijo National Academy, Kayama. The visit of the former president is for 3 days, on invitation of the Bayelsa State government. who maintain on their part their commitment to development of the state for the good of the people.
Meanwhile, Chief Obasanjo's visit to Bayelsa State also afforded him an opportunity to meet with his counterpart, former President Goodluck Jonathan. Chief Obasanjo was accompanied by the Bayelsa State Governors Ireke Dixon and other top government officials to Dr. Jonathan's country home in Otoke. Speaking to journalists after the meeting, Chief Obasanjo said that he was warmly received by Dr. Jonathan and his wife, Patience. While commending his host for the reception, Chief Obasanjo also lauded Governor Dixon for facilitating the meeting, describing it as a meeting of brothers. Chief Obasanjo had, in the run-up to the 2015 presidential election, released a letter in which he castigated Dr. Jonathan for bad leadership. Dr. Jonathan eventually lost that election to President Muhammadu Buhari, a development that was partly blamed on Chief Obasanjo's action. And away from politics to some health-related stories, the global indices of poliomyelitis the world over has dropped by more than 99% since the commitment to eradicating it in 1988. But the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the GPEI, has faced a number of challenges in eradicating the last 1% of the wild virus, particularly in the Northeast. But there are renewed efforts to change the trend.
There is a need for the development of a quick-win strategy to improve routine immunization coverage and also eliminate polio completely in Nigeria, particularly in the northern region. Records from the United Nations Children's Fund show that 4 out of 10 children do not receive any vaccine from the health system in the northeast, and this is largely as a result of lack of awareness. The immunization coverage in northeastern part of Nigeria reveals that 40% of the children are not vaccinated, 37% partially vaccinated, and 23% fully vaccinated. That explains why health officials in Adamawa State are involving the media in the sensitization exercise to strengthen the awareness for polio vaccination. Access to the media is also key. Only 4.6% of people in rural areas have access to newspapers. While just 14.2% of the population read newspapers, 24.6% in rural dwellers in Adamawa State have access to television, while about only 31.2% of them have access to radio. Media executives in the state are also willing to help address the situation through programming that will encourage parents to take their children for immunization.
The insurgency in the state has actually posed a huge challenge in terms of reaching people in those settlements, and so because of that we came up with innovative strategies to be able to reach those settlements. We engage with the civilian JTFs to be able to reach areas that are relatively safe, and for areas that are completely inaccessible to our vaccinators, we have partnership with the military, whereby we actually give them the vaccines and they go into those settlements and administer the vaccines themselves.
They were carried along, but not at a level that they can make the impact required. Now, this 1% that is remaining requires some serious collaboration with the press, and that is why this very occasion took place today. And it seems as if the press, together with JAB that has been inaugurated, is going to go a long way in getting rid of the Rwariman passage.
With this synergy with the media, it is expected that there will be an improvement in the response of people to immunization in Adamawa State, with a bigger expectation that the message will spread to the whole northeastern part of the country.
When the news at 10 returns, investment by local manufacturers surged by 99% to 300 billion naira in the first half of 2017. Join us again.